Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to today's Partner Infopedia web conference, Hybrid Operate Training. We are broadcasting and recording this web conference through Skype meeting broadcast, and the audio can be heard through your PC speakers only. If you do not consent to being part of a recorded session, we ask that you please disconnect your browser at this time. The web conference recording will be available at skypeoperationframework.com/WAC Academy within 48 hours. If you have questions today for the presenters or need support, please use the Q&A panel located on the right-hand side of your screen. We've posted a few items there already and we'll continue to monitor that throughout our session. Now let's move on to the show. Presenting with us today from Microsoft, we have Martin Renas, who is a Senior Customer Engineering Architect at Microsoft. Martin, you now have the floor.
Thank you. So let's start and talk about hybrid operate. And the scope of this session is really to talk you through what is required to operate a hybrid deployment of Skype for Business online. What are the regular tasks that you should perform? What is our guidance in terms of patching, including non-Skype for Business components like SQL Server? And then we'll also briefly touch on the considerations for quality monitoring in the context of hybrid operate. My name is Martin Renas and I'm one of the architects in the customer experience and deployment team. Our team is part of the Skype for Business product group, and our team has the goals to enhance the customer and partner experience by capturing the feedback to influence the product direction, driving and enabling organizations of any size to get our cloud service, and provide the best-in-class readiness and deployment services. So the next couple of slides briefly talk about SOF, and the assumption is, or my assumption is, that you've seen this already a couple of times, so I'm gonna not do a deep dive here. This session is part of the wider Skype Operations Framework training, and we encourage you to review the operations training and the recorded trainings. The Skype Operations Framework is there to help you way through enabling the users to the cloud in a way that we are delivering and moving from on-premises deployments to online services. And we've been asked to provide the practical guidance to assist with planning, delivering, and operating the Skype for Business online. Skype is a living framework and we are working on updates on a regular basis, so please visit our site on a regular basis to get the latest material. As we are going to find out in today's session, the Skype for Business Operations Framework is a living and breathing framework for Skype for Business Online. We will be adding new content and working on updating delivered assets, and we will be updating the training material to cover major updates, but we encourage you always to be working with the latest assets, which may have been released since this overview session was recorded. This recording is based on the October 2016 version of this content. Please make sure that you download the latest content whenever you start working with your customer. So with that, let's talk about hybrid and how you do operate a hybrid environment for your customer or in your own environment. So like mentioned earlier, SOF is really the end-to-end guidance to make sure that you have an ideal user experience for your users. I myself have been part of a number of projects where we put a lot of effort in the envisioning, planning phase, where we put a lot of effort in the implementation. And whenever we started to deliver the service to the end users, we had really a great user experience. But then at some point in time, the service was handed over to operations, not in every scenario, or not in every project, in every engagement, operations was considered equally important as planning or the deliver phase. And from that point on, things went a bit downhill, and all the investments that have been made at the first place were a bit at risk. Because in the end, the user experience was degraded or was degrading over time, and that's something I'd like you to save on and help you to be prepared for the operations phase here. So if we are deploying an online service and start moving our people or some part of our population to the online world, why is it still important to maintain the on-prem health and keep an eye on that one? Well, even in a hybrid environment, a lot of the on-prem components still play a big part in the overall deployment. Just think about the Edge server and the associated Next Hop, all the authentication infrastructure, Active Directory, ADFS, and maybe even mediation server if you're planning to use on-premises PSTN connectivity. All of those components are critical to the health and the service that's being delivered to your service. And I've seen this in one environment. The customer had a rather reasonable large on-premises deployment, but they were consuming the service for the most part internally. They had all the Edge infrastructure in place, but for the most part, users were connecting from inside the network. So at some point in time, they decided to move to online, or at least enter a hybrid deployment. Then patch day was there, some maintenance was scheduled, and they've started to perform their regular maintenance and pulled down the Edge and external-facing authentication infrastructure. And this immediately had impacted all the online hosted users. And they haven't been prepared for this, they haven't planned for this, and it was actually a big outage for that customer that caused a lot of headache afterwards. And this session is there to help you prevent those type of issues and guide you through the processes that are required. Another important activity here is all the patching, and not just only about how do you do patching and what to think about, but also helping you to understand why it is important. And I mean, patching has a number of goals that we are targeting here. One is that we obviously want to install the latest security updates, but also we want to make sure that we leverage the product investments that were made, and also want to make sure that we remain compatible with the online services. So in the end, the outcome of this activity is really that we provide this ongoing high-quality service to the end users to make sure that all the product investments that were made at the first place are still valid and still deliver the expected outcome to the end users. Now, we have to realize that as everything in Operate, this component as well is an ongoing task. There's nothing like you deliver, you perform this activity once, you have the outcome and you're done, but this is really an ongoing operations. So if you think about the prerequisites, there's really not a lot that need to be mentioned here, because at the very first time when the first users are online and you've enabled users in your environment, this is when you need to start executing on the operations tasks here. This training and the activities here are targeted for the architects, IT operations, and service owner roles, because this is really the main work that they need to be doing here. So with that let's start with the first couple of sections here, which is from a high-level view. If we think about operations, what are the tasks that need to be performed on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis? What are the type of things that need to be done, and which tasks of them apply to on-prem and to an on-prem deployment, and what needs to be done for an online environment? So if we think about the daily tasks, as you can see, some of them apply to Skype for Business Online, some of them don't, but all of them apply to Skype for Business on premises. And the reason for that is that tasks like running backup against your front-end servers or your Skype for Business infrastructure is something that we will do in the online world for you, same as the top review the top failures, which is really there to help you understand how well the environment is performing. And for the online world, this is something that we will do for you. But on the other side, there are a couple of things that do apply to both environments. And one of them is the media check, or the media quality check, where you will do a daily check-in to understand if there are any major issues that came up, as well as you want to have a daily touch point with the incident management teams, like the help desk teams, etc., just to get a rhythm with them and understand if there are any trending issues or anything that needs immediate attention. Then if we move on to the weekly tasks, this is more like a bit of a synchronization with broader teams that are related to the Skype for Business deployment, and those are regular meetings with the change control team, and as well as regular meetings with all the services we are dependent on. Particularly infrastructure and network is an important one. And I've seen, if I think about the environments and the customers I've worked with, customers that had a regular cadence or regular meetings with networking team and other security teams, etc. Those are the environments that work pretty well. And environments where I didn't have this regular cadence, it was harder to troubleshoot and remediate issues as they come up. So from a weekly task standpoint, there's really no big difference from Skype for Business Online and the on-premises deployment, because all of those tasks are related to the infrastructure. So there's really no big change here. Then if we think about the monthly tasks, it's really all about auditing the environment, understanding the overall health and overall quality, reliability that's being delivered to the end users, identify trends and see what needs remediation. Some of them is client related, where you want to review the impact of devices that are being used, if there's a particular set of drivers, audio devices, Wi-Fi drivers, those type of things that are that contribute to less performing streams. You want to perform an audit against firmware and software updates that are required. You also want to run some regular meetings with the stakeholders and report on the overall media quality that's being delivered, as well as, and this is a good point, to report back on the improvements that you've made, because the ongoing operations is a time-consuming task and will involve people from other teams like the network team. And this is a good point in time to report back on the improvements that you were able to make, to show that the investments are made at the right point. So there are a few more processes in this area that are related to that one, like updating the CQD building and subnet information to make sure that this is up to date, as well as auditing administrative access to the environment. So basically check if all the people that are listed with administrative access are, if there's still a legit access, or if there's some remediation needed here as well. And then the last big part, and we're going to talk about this in a bit more in the next couple of slides, is when it comes to infrastructure maintenance. And this is essentially everything that's related with patching, firmware upgrades, as well as capacity analysis to make sure that you are that the on-premises environment is still scaled correctly, that there is no change needed. And you also want to, at a monthly basis, review the disaster recovery plans, as well as thinking of performing disaster recovery tests. So let's talk about patching for a bit more, because this is an area where I've seen a lot of questions in the past, and a lot of unclearance, and I'd like to provide some more guidance here, because in the end, patching is one of the most critical tasks that need to be performed to make sure that the environment is healthy going forward. So if we think about the patching strategy from a high-level point of view, we have a deployment here that consists of central sites A, B, and ABC, and we have 2 branch sites associated with those central sites as well. So when we think about patching the on-premises components, again, online is being patched for you. There's nothing that you need to do. But if we think about patching the on-premises environments, the high-level concept here is that we would do patching side by side, meaning that we will start with every component that is associated to the site A, so central site A, and this also includes branch site number 1 because those are associated. And when we would patch everything that is inside those sites, and everything is really everything that is Skype for Business related, not just Skype for Business. So we would patch all roles that are Skype for Business, SQL servers that are associated, AD, ADFS, etc. Everything that is associated with this particular site. And we're going to talk about this in the next slide about a bit more in detail. Then once this site is patched, you would move on to the next site, central site B with associated branch site 2. Again, perform all the patching that's required there, and then move on to the next site, central site C, in this particular example here. So the first principle that I'd like to establish here is, from a high-level point of view, we would do patching side by side. Start with one site, patch this site entirely, and then move on to the next site. Now, let's see how would we do patching within this particular site. Within this particular site, the patching strategy is that we would perform what I call inside out. So we will start with the front-end pools, which is really the core of the infrastructure itself. Patch the front-end pools and the directly associated services like the SQL server. Then we would continue with the other roles that are associated, like mediation servers, SPAs, etc. Everything that's close to those front-end servers. And then from that one, continue with the other roles that are deployed in this site, like edge servers and others. So also think about other roles that are, or other components that are deployed within that same site that are not shown on this particular diagram, which might be the reverse proxy. What about the Exchange server? What about the gateways and SPC firmware on those type of devices? Because in the end, we really want to make sure that this particular site in its entirety is updated to the latest patch level, so that we then can tick the box on that side. Yes, this box is this site is patched entirely. So let's talk about patching details in a bit more, because a couple of things that I've seen here. So when we think about Skype for Business, Skype for Business Server 2015, for the front-end server, we introduced a new commandlet, which is the invoke CS computer failover. And that's something really you want to do when you start patching your front-end servers, because this commandlet allows you to remove a specific server from the service. It will tell the fabric that this server is going offline. These users will be rehomed to a different pool, to a different server in the same pool. So and all these services will be disabled. At that point in time, this server is completely out of service, and you can perform every kind of maintenance that you want to be doing, like patching the Skype for Business components, installing Windows driver, or whatever is required, including hardware maintenance and multiple reboots. So this applies to the front-end pools. For all other roles, you would just run a stop CS Windows service dash graceful to be sure that all services are ended whenever the last session has finished on that server. Then obviously, and this probably is nothing new, we want to run the Skype server update installer from this download link. And the only part from that really long URL that you really probably need to remember is the DN788954, because this link, well, this term, if you search for it, will always take you to the summary page where you can download the latest Skype for Business updates. Once you've done that, You would run this on the front-end server or on the Skype for Business server. We would detect what's installed and patch it to the latest version. But then we're not just finished yet, because by the time we are patching this server, there are more things that need to be patched. And this includes the operating system. So make sure that you apply all the Windows updates that are out there. Please also make sure that you do install the latest service packs and patches to the SQL server, including SQL Express on the front-end server. And this is particularly important because I've seen an environment where the responsibility of patching wasn't quite clear, or well, was clear, but then the execution was a bit wasn't as good as it should be, because SQL patches were only allowed to be installed by the SQL team. However, the SQL team was not aware that SQL was actually running on the front-end servers, because, as you know, every Skype for Business server has SQL Express running on the front-end server, or on each role. So in that environment, it turned out that nobody ever patched the SQL server on the front end. And the reason for that is, on the one side, it was the task of the SQL team, and they weren't aware. And on the other side, the environment was configured to use a specific WSUS server, but the WSUS server had absolutely, or had close to no updates available. So whenever we were running check for Windows Update, it was just telling them, well, you know what, no updates available. So you were thinking that, or I was thinking that this environment was super patched, but in reality, it turned out that the SQL was still running the RTM version, which caused some severe issues. And in that environment, we had issues with meeting join that were, for the most part, took too long, as well as issues with presence, and presence updates were not processed fast enough. And all of those issues we were able to trace them back to a lack of SQL patching on the front-end server. So that's why I made it in bold and have a big green box here to emphasize that patching the SQL Express instance on all Skype for Business servers is super important. And please make sure that you install the latest SQL updates and service packs on that machine to make sure that you don't run into those issues. By the time you are running, updating this particular server, again, think about Windows updates, drivers, firmware, BIOS, what else is on your list that need to be updates, and apply all of them to that machine. Then there's an important step: please reboot the machine, even if that's not strictly required based on the updates and based on the fact that all the services have been terminated. I strongly advise you to reboot the machine after each maintenance is performed. And the reason for that is that you want to make sure that you catch every potential failure or issue that only happens after a reboot. Because I've seen, not very often, but I've seen in the past a server that was running just fine even after patching, and then at some point in time, a week or 2 weeks later, the server has been rebooted and something just didn't work as it was expected, but nobody was able to tell why that happened. And after long hours of investigation, it turned out that the update that has been installed actually caused the problem. So please make sure that you always reboot the server to avoid those type of things. Then obviously you want to verify if the server is healthy, check for event logs, check for services. And for the front-end server, think that you need to do the invoke CS computer failback, because only that command will bring this server back into rotation and will bring this service back to life. Once all of that is done, you also want to make sure that the database is updated, or that you identify if there's a need to perform an update to the database schema. And this is done by running the test CS database commandlet with a -local service on each server that you've updated. And as a result, you'll see a long list of all databases that are associated with the local service. And there you want to check if the installed version matches the expected version, because this is the check that will tell you if an upgrade is needed or not. So talked a lot about all these Skype for Business components. One thing I wanted to call out here for Azure AD Connect, starting with Azure AD Connect 1.1.105. This version or later versions have enabled and have the capability to do an automatic upgrade if a new version exists. And if Azure AD Connect has been installed using the Express setup, the auto upgrade feature is enabled by default. If you've selected a different installation path or have modified the configuration, please use the get AD sync auto upgrade commandlet on that Azure AD server to verify if auto upgrade is enabled. And if that is the case, you should expect that you always have the latest version. If that's not enabled, want to think about either re-enabling this again or including this in your manual patch list of servers that need to be patched manually. So talking about patching, another important thing about patching is not just that we actually need to do this, but there's a planning task associated with it. This is all about considering the impact. So if I'm going to take down server A or server B, what is the impact of that particular server? If you have an enterprise edition pool, front-end edition pool, or multiple edge servers in a pool, for the most part, you should not have any impact, because if high availability works as expected, then taking down a single server probably should not have an impact. But you also want to plan for this carefully and think about the various scenarios that are required or that are supported by this particular server. And there are a couple of things. Obviously, if you take down a on-prem server, users that are hosted on that particular pool might be impacted to some extent. Also, remember that all meetings that are scheduled by that particular person hosted on a pool will always be hosted on that particular front end. So even if that user is not active, but is hosting meetings, there's still load on that particular server. Users that are homed online will leverage the Edge server and the Nexthop server, the Federation route Edge server and the Nexthop server, as well as the on-premises components for sign-in and authentication. So make sure that you consider this. And like I said, I've seen environments that pulled down the Edge server because they were thinking that most of the users were internally, but in reality, this server was needed for users that are homed online to be able to sign in successfully. Another thought that you should have in mind here is if you are deploying a cloud PBX with on-premises PSTN connectivity, again, the Federation Edge server, the Nexthop server, and the mediation servers are part of the cloud solution as well. So you want to make sure that that you consider the impact here as well. So one more thing here is, if we think about impact and the velocity of patching, there's another thing I wanted to talk about is the period of interop. So whenever you start patching, how fast should you actually proceed? And while we do not have any hard guidance here or any hard supportability criteria that tells you must update your servers within 1 or 2 hours or something like that, it's really very strongly recommended to complete the entire patching of a single pool, be it a front-end pool or any other pool, within the shortest possible time frame. So within a single task, and so that typically a patching time frame for a single front-end pool or any other pool should not be longer than 1 day. And then within the same site, it's recommended to proceed as fast as it makes sense in your environment, as fast as you can, just to make sure that all the servers are at the same patch level, to limit the time frame of coexistence here. Because in the end, it's all about making sure that the service is healthy and delivering the service to the end users. Now, if we want to make sure that the service is delivering the quality to the end users, applying all the updates is one part of the solution, but it's not enough. We also need to think about monitoring and what type of monitoring tools are available and which monitoring tools apply to which scenario, be it on-premises environment or the online hosted components, or in a hybrid deployment as a mix of both deployment methods. So when thinking about monitoring, I always think about monitoring not to be this giant monolithic thing, but really about different tasks that need to be performed. On the one side, there is something that I always call component level monitoring. And this is really making sure that the smallest unit of the deployment is healthy. So that's making sure that the event logs are fine, that the performance counters are within healthy range, that the service status on a individual component or server are healthy. And that is obviously something in Office 365 that we will perform for you. But in the on-premises environment, that is something that you need to be aware of and that you need to be performed to make sure that your server, the individual component, is healthy. Then the next level of monitoring is all about monitoring the feature at a feature level. So that's really making sure that a particular feature, send an IM, participate in a conference, is available to an end user. And that is something that we need to monitor both at the for online users as well as for users that are hosted on premises. And then the last element, the last dimension here is what I call the experience monitoring, where it's all about ensuring that the experience end-to-end is good for our end users. And this is both quality and reliability, as well as the perception of the service to the end users, all up. So let's talk about the three elements in a bit more. So at a component level, like I said, this is really at the individual server level. So we need performance counters, service status, event logs, all of those. And this is really for the most part an on-premises play. So there's the tools that you probably all know, which is the System Center Operations Manager, or the online version of that, the Operations Manager suite that you can leverage to monitor at the component level. And then for in-depth performance level monitoring, there's also the Statistics Manager that will give you a close to real-time view on that one. Again, if we talk about the solution and monitoring the solution, obviously we have to monitor all these Skype for Business servers, but we also want to make sure that all the services we are dependent on are monitored as well. This includes Active Directory, ADFS, SQL Server, Exchange, if deployed, and those type of roles. Make sure that that those are monitored at the same level. Then if we continue and go the next step to the feature level monitoring, which is really, am I able to perform action X, or is my service accessible from the end user's point of view? In the on-premises world, this is really the SCOM watcher node and the synthetic transactions that help us to monitor and identify this. In the online world, there is the Office 365 Admin Center, where I can see and verify the service status, as well as the Office 365 mobile app that comes with push notifications, so that I am actually proactively informed and notified about the service status and any outages or degradations, if there are any. And then the last part is what I call experience monitoring, which is all about understanding what is the experience that my end users are seeing. Do we have a high enough call quality? Is the call reliability where it should be? What is the feedback that users provide me and rate my calls? And also this also includes surveys. So what's your strategy on sending out surveys to the end users to make sure that you have a good experience here? And tools to use here are, for the on-premises world, the monitoring server reports, as well as the call quality dashboard, both for on-premises and online. Now, if you are familiar with the call quality dashboard, you might ask yourself, what can I do to actually integrate the call quality dashboard on premises and online into a single deployment? So today, there's no way to get a holistic view across on premises and online. So you would have to run, you have to query both the on-prem and the online version of CQD to get insight what's going on here. If you want to learn more about how to use CQD to get those insights and see what's going on here, I would strongly recommend you and point you to the trainings that we've recorded on CQD already, which is the Getting Started with CQD, to learn more about CQD. When talking about using CQD and how to use it, I always refer to CQM as a methodology. CQM is the call quality methodology, and while this has been written for on-premises deployment for the most part, all the concepts and the principles and the methodology, how do you analyze data and what do you do with the data to identify what is actually causing an issue, all of that described in CQM from a methodology standpoint is still valid, and all the reports can be, or most of the reports can be run by the call quality dashboard on premises and online as well. So the call to action here is really to leverage those type of material to perform the experience monitoring to get an insight on what's going on here. So to recap this and to close out the session, if you want to ensure that there is a smooth service delivery, please consider operations not just as an afterthought, like I've seen it in too many projects, but planning for operations and executing operations should be seen as or is equally important as all the planning and designing the solution. So the call to action is really to put the same amount of effort into the operations planning as you put in effort to plan and deliver the solution at the first place, because only this will help you and your customer to realize the value that you've envisioned at the first place, because otherwise you might have a great experience right after the project finish, but then continuing going forward, the experience will go down, and this is not a place where we would be, because then people would stop using this service or use a different tool and different tools to perform the actions they want to do at the first place, and this puts the entire project at risk. So if you want to contribute to SOF, if you want to provide feedback on this particular session or on any other element of SOF, please go to the SOF community or to the feedback site on the Skype operational framework, because this is really where you can provide feedback, let us know what's valuable, what needs to be changed, what needs to be added, or what do you want to do differently, as well as I'd like to highlight the community here, where you can share your thoughts and discuss things that you have seen or that you wanted to share with others. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Debbie again.
All right, thanks, Martin. So folks, we'll be starting our Q&A in just a moment. As a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, just type it into the white text box on the right hand of your screen. Before we start the Q&A, though, if you've not already found it, I'd like to call your attention to the link in the upper right-hand side of your viewing window that says Survey Link. That takes you to a short survey for this web conference, and we ask that you please take a moment before logging out to access it. We hope you found today's information helpful, and if you enjoyed today's web conference or have feedback on how we can provide you with a better event, here's your chance to let us know. Our survey scores are on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest possible score. And with that, I will turn it back to Martin to go over the questions.
All right, thanks. So a couple of questions here. So one is, does patching the SQL Express instance on the front-end server include upgrading to the next major version of SQL Express? And I think that's a good question, because I've seen this quite often. So it's really there that you can and should install the latest serverless pack and updates to the existing version of SQL Express, but please do not upgrade to the next major version like SQL 2016 or whatever the next version is, because this is A, not supported, and B, will very likely break at least parts of your deployment. So please do not upgrade to the next major version, but please make sure that you do install the latest service packs and patches to the SQL Express on your front-end server. So another one is, so if I'm purchasing a service from Office 365 like Skype Business online, are there still management tasks or operations tasks that I need to perform? And the answer is yes, of course, because there are on-premises components we are dependent on, be it authentication, Active Directory, ADFS, as well as device management, your clients, or your network that needs to be managed, or configuration. And all of this is within your own within your control, and that's something you need to be managing even in the online world. I think with that, I'm handed over to Debbie to see if there are any more questions. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Martin. I don't believe we have any more questions out there. Thomas will just check in with you. That's it. All right. With that, ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude today's Infopedia web conference. The recording from today's presentation will be available on skypeoperationframework.com WAC Academy. You'll also receive an email 72 hours post-conference with details on where to access it. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenter, Martin, and thank you, audience, for logging in and joining us today. This concludes today's session, and you may now disconnect from the broadcast.